Did you love her? Eliza's voice cracked as she clutched the pregnancy test in her trembling hand, tears streaming down her face. Did you ever think about what this would do to us? To our family? Dominic Reeves stood in the doorway of their once shared bathroom, his imposing frame now seeming diminished. His piercing green eyes, the same eyes that had captivated boardrooms and investors, now looked hollow with regret. Eliza, please. It wasn't about love. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. His voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't know about the baby. She laughed, a bitter, broken sound. Neither did I, isn't that ironic? I found out I'm carrying your child 3 days after I walked in on you with my sister. My own sister, Dominic. The pregnancy test clattered against the marble countertop as she pushed past him. Don't follow me. Don't call me. This marriage is over. Welcome to Mr. Stephen Stories. If stories of betrayal, redemption, and the resilience of the human heart speak to you, please like and subscribe to join our community of storytellers and listeners. Now, let's delve deeper into Eliza's journey, a tale of heartbreak and hope that will challenge everything you believe about forgiveness. The image was forever seared into Eliza Morgan's memory, the door to the master bedroom of their Lake Geneva vacation home swinging open, revealing her husband of 5 years tangled in her sister Rebecca's arms. The sound of their laughter had drawn her upstairs, only to have that laughter transform into shocked silence when they realized they'd been discovered. Eliza. Rebecca had gasped, clutching the sheet to her chest, her lipstick smeared across her mouth, and Dominic's. Time seemed to stop at that moment. Eliza felt as though she were floating above the scene, watching it unfold from a distance. The champagne glasses on the nightstand. The scattered clothing on the floor. The unmistakable intimacy of their embrace. And Dominic's eyes. Those piercing green eyes that had once looked at her with such love, now wide with shock, quickly shifting to calculation. She recognized that look. It was the same one he wore in boardrooms when assessing damage control. Eliza, wait, he'd called as she stumbled backward. It's not what you think. But it was exactly what she thought. It was betrayal in its most primal form, her husband and her sister, the two people she trusted most in the world, destroying everything she believed in with a single act. She had turned and fled, deaf to their calls, blind to everything but the need to escape. The 3-hour drive back to Chicago had passed in a blur of tears and rage. By the time she reached their penthouse, she had made her decision. This wasn't something she could forgive. This wasn't something she could move past. This was the end. Now, 3 days later, the discovery of her pregnancy had added a cruel twist to an already unbearable situation. Eliza placed the pregnancy test on the marble counter and stared at her reflection. The successful pediatric surgeon who had once radiated confidence appeared hollow-eyed and pale. She'd built a reputation saving children's lives with steady hands that now couldn't stop shaking. A baby. Their baby. Conceived before everything fell apart. Her phone buzzed for what seemed like the 100th time, Dominic again. His 15th call since she'd walked out. She silenced it without looking, as she had all the others. Whatever explanations or excuses he had, she wasn't ready to hear them. Instead, she called the one person she trusted implicitly. Olivia? Can you come over? I need you. An hour later, her best friend sat beside her on the living room floor, arms wrapped around Eliza's shoulders as she finally allowed herself to break. What am I going to do? Eliza sobbed, her head resting against Olivia's shoulder. I'm pregnant with his child, Liv. His child. Olivia stroked her hair gently. First, you breathe, she said firmly. Then you remember you're the strongest person I know. You're a surgeon who holds children's hearts in your hands every day. You can handle this. Eliza wiped her tears, nodding slowly. I can't stay with him. Not after what he did. Not with Rebecca. Of course not, Olivia agreed, her tone leaving no room for debate. But you need to tell him about the baby. Eventually. Eliza looked down at her still flat stomach. I know. Just, not yet. I need to figure out what I want first. What she wanted became clear with painful simplicity: freedom. From the betrayal. From the lies. From the marriage that had been crumbling long before she found Dominic with Rebecca. The next morning, Eliza called her lawyer. Dominic Reeves stared at the divorce papers his secretary had just placed on his desk, the words, "irreconcilable differences," standing out in stark black type. His hands, usually steady as he navigated billion-dollar deals, trembled slightly as he flipped through the pages. "She can't be serious," he muttered, though he knew Eliza was deadly serious. The cold precision of these documents, requesting no alimony, no shared assets beyond what she had brought into the marriage, was pure Eliza. Clean. Surgical. Final. Dominic leaned back in his leather chair, running his hands through his dark hair. The downtown Chicago skyline stretched before him through floor-to-ceiling windows, the empire he'd built from nothing. Horizon Ventures had transformed him from a scholarship kid with ambitious dreams to one of the most powerful tech investors in the country. And now, at 36, he was about to lose the one person who had been there before the money, before the success, before everyone wanted a piece of him. His phone rang, Rebecca. Again. He sent it to voicemail. His sister-in-law had been calling constantly, desperate to explain, to justify. He had no interest in her excuses. What had happened between them had been a mistake, a moment of weakness during a dark period in his marriage. One terrible error in judgment that had cost him everything. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Reeves, the board is waiting in the conference room." "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes," he replied automatically. Instead of preparing for the meeting, Dominic picked up the divorce papers again. Eliza wanted nothing from him, not his money, not his time, not even an explanation. Just his signature releasing her from their vows. Something inside him rebelled at the simplicity of it. Their story couldn't end like this, sterile paperwork and divided assets. Not after everything they'd built together. He reached for a pen, hesitated, then set it down. He couldn't sign. Not yet. Not until he'd spoken to her face to face. The hospital corridors were familiar territory for Eliza. Here, in surgical scrubs with her hair pulled back in a tight bun, she could almost forget the chaos of her personal life. Almost. "Dr. Morgan?" She turned, momentarily confused by the use of her maiden name before remembering she'd requested the change in the hospital directory yesterday. "Your 3 o'clock is waiting in exam room 2, the nurse continued. 7-year-old post-op check, 6 weeks after the Ross procedure. Eliza nodded, grateful for the distraction of work. "Thanks, Jenny. I'll be right there." She'd thrown herself into extra shifts since leaving Dominic, finding solace in the structured environment of the hospital. Here, problems had solutions. Broken hearts could be fixed with skill and precision. As she examined her young patient, checking the healing incision with gentle fingers, she felt a wave of nausea rise unexpectedly. Morning sickness, though it was nearly 4 in the afternoon. She swallowed hard, maintaining her professional smile. "Everything looks perfect, Jake," she told the boy, her voice steady despite the churning in her stomach. "You're healing beautifully." The child's mother squeezed her hand in gratitude. "We can never thank you enough, Dr. Morgan. You saved our son's life." "He did all the hard work," Eliza replied, ruffling Jake's hair. "He's a fighter." After they left, Eliza leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths until the nausea passed. At 8 weeks pregnant, she'd managed to hide her condition from colleagues, but soon the physical changes would become impossible to conceal. She placed a hand on her abdomen, whispering, "We're fighters too, little one." The moment of peace shattered as her pager beeped. Emergency surgery, a 4-year-old with a traumatic heart injury. Pushing all personal thoughts aside, Eliza rushed toward the OR, slipping into the focused state that made her one of the best pediatric cardiac surgeons in Chicago. 4 hours later, exhausted but triumphant after a successful surgery, Eliza stepped out of the hospital into the cool evening air. The stress and exertion had taken their toll. She needed food and rest, for the baby's sake if not her own. Eliza. The familiar voice stopped her cold. Dominic stood beside the hospital entrance, his tall frame silhouetted against the building lights. Despite everything, her traitorous heart still skipped at the sight of him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, pulling her coat tighter around herself. "You won't take my calls. You won't see me at home. You left me no choice." His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear the strain beneath it. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," Eliza replied, starting to walk past him. He stepped into her path. "Then just listen. 5 minutes. Please." Something in his expression, desperation maybe, or genuine remorse, made her pause. 5 minutes. Not here. They walked in silence to a small park across from the hospital, taking seats on opposite ends of a bench. Eliza kept her gaze fixed on the distant city lights, unable to look at him directly. "The divorce papers," Dominic began. "I can't sign them. Not like this." Eliza's jaw tightened. "You don't have a choice. What happened with Rebecca?" "Don't," she cut him off sharply. "I don't want to hear her name. I don't want details or excuses. It was one mistake, Eliza. One terrible mistake that meant nothing." She finally turned to look at him, anger flaring. "Nothing? It meant nothing to sleep with my sister in our bed? The sister I grew up with, who was my maid of honor at our wedding?" Dominic flinched at her words. It wasn't an ongoing thing. It was one night, when you were at that conference in Boston. I was drunk, she was upset about her divorce, and I have no excuse. None. You're right. You don't. Eliza stood, unable to remain still. Our marriage was already in trouble, Dominic. You were always working, always distant. But this? This is unforgivable. I know, he said quietly. But Eliza, 5 years together has to count for something. Let me try to make this right. She laughed bitterly. Make it right? How exactly do you plan to do that? Therapy. Time. Whatever you need. Just, don't throw away everything we built. Eliza wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of the life growing inside her, the complication she hadn't yet revealed. Part of her wanted to tell him, to see the shock on his face, to force him to confront the full consequences of his betrayal. But another part, the protective part, wasn't ready to share this fragile new reality. What we built was based on trust, she said finally. And respect. Both are gone now. Eliza. Your 5 minutes are up, she interrupted, turning away. Sign the papers, Dominic. It's over. As she walked back toward the hospital parking garage, she heard him call after her once more, his voice carrying on the night air. I still love you. She kept walking, tears blurring her vision, one hand instinctively moving to her stomach. I love you too, she whispered, but not to the man behind her, to the child within, the one remaining connection to the life she was leaving behind. If this story of heartbreak and difficult choices resonates with you, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment below. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful human stories. 2 weeks passed. Eliza moved into a small apartment near the hospital, taking only her personal belongings from the penthouse. The divorce proceedings continued, slowed by Dominic's reluctance but progressing nonetheless. She was examining ultrasound equipment in a supply closet when dizziness struck without warning. The room tilted, edges blurring, and she grabbed for the shelf as her knees buckled. Dr. Morgan. A nurse rushed forward, catching her arm. Are you all right? Just lightheaded, Eliza managed, though the spinning wouldn't stop. I skipped breakfast. The nurse's concerned eyes studied her face. You're white as a sheet. Let me take you to an exam room. That's not necessary, Eliza began, but another wave of dizziness silenced her protest. Minutes later, she found herself in the embarrassing position of being a patient in her own hospital, and delivering fluids while her colleague Dr. Patel checked her vitals. Dehydration and low blood sugar, he diagnosed, frowning at her over his glasses. Eliza, you know better than this. Especially in your condition. She blinked in surprise. You know. He smiled gently. Your HCG levels are elevated. I'd estimate about 10 weeks. Almost 11, she admitted. I was planning to tell the chief next week. Well, as your friend and colleague, I'm prescribing better self-care. Regular meals, proper hydration, and reduced hours. His expression softened. I know you're going through a difficult time personally, but you have more than yourself to consider now. Eliza nodded, properly chastened. I'll do better. Good. Because I'm admitting you overnight for observation. Despite her protests, Eliza found herself in a private room, ordered to rest while fluids and nutrients replenished her depleted system. She was drifting to sleep when a commotion outside her door roused her. I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves, but visiting hours are over. I need to see her. The nurse downstairs said she collapsed. Dominic's voice, urgent and worried, sent Eliza's heart racing. Before she could prepare herself, he was in the doorway, his normally immaculate appearance disheveled, fear evident in his eyes. Eliza, he breathed, crossing to her bedside. What happened? Are you okay? She struggled to sit up, pulling the blanket higher. I'm fine. Just dehydration. How did you even know I was here? I still have you as my emergency contact, he admitted. The hospital called when they admitted you. His gaze traveled over the monitors. They said you fainted. It was nothing serious, she insisted. Just working too hard, not eating enough. Dominic's expression remained troubled. You never neglect your health. You're the one who lectured me about proper nutrition when I worked through meals. The irony of his concern wasn't lost on her. After everything, he still felt entitled to worry about her. Part of her wanted to order him out, to maintain the distance she'd carefully constructed. But another part, a weaker part perhaps, was touched by his genuine fear for her well-being. Really, I'm okay, she said more gently. They're just being cautious. He sat in the chair beside her bed, looking relieved but still concerned. I've been trying to reach you. The lawyers said you rejected the counterproposal. Eliza sighed. Of course he would bring up the divorce, even now. I'm not interested in negotiating, Dominic. I want a clean break. But the penthouse is yours. I don't want it. And the lake house. I have memories I'd rather forget, she said sharply. Dominic fell silent, his expression pained. After a moment, he spoke again, softer now. I miss you, Eliza. The house feels empty without you. Everything does. The sincerity in his voice threatened to crack her resolve. This was the man she'd fallen in love with, earnest, vulnerable, not the calculating businessman or the unfaithful husband. For a dangerous moment, she imagined forgiveness, reconciliation, raising their child together. Then Rebecca's face flashed in her mind, and the fantasy shattered. You should go, she said quietly. I need to rest. Dominic stood reluctantly. At least let me drive you home tomorrow when they discharge you. Olivia's already arranged to pick me up. He nodded, accepting the rejection. At the door, he paused. I know you don't believe me, but I am sorry, Eliza. More than I can ever express. After he left, Eliza placed her hand on her abdomen, feeling the slightest curve that hadn't been there weeks before. Just you and me now, little one, she whispered. We'll be okay. But as she drifted off to sleep, her dreams were filled with green eyes and broken promises. The doctor's lounge was blissfully empty when Eliza entered the next morning, discharged but instructed to take the day off. She was gathering her things from her locker when the door opened, and Dr. Helen Cho, chief of pediatric surgery, entered. Eliza, she said warmly. How are you feeling? Much better, thank you. I just needed some fluids and rest. Helen poured herself coffee, studying Eliza over the rim of her mug. Dr. Patel mentioned your condition. Congratulations. Eliza managed a small smile. Thank you. It's still early days. And challenging timing, with everything else you're dealing with. Helen's tone was gentle but direct. The hospital grapevine isn't entirely clueless. I was planning to tell you officially next week, Eliza said. I'll need to adjust my surgical schedule eventually, but I can continue with most procedures well into the third trimester. Helen nodded. We'll work it out. But Eliza. She hesitated, then continued, don't feel you have to carry everything alone. This hospital isn't just your workplace, it's your community. The unexpected kindness brought tears to Eliza's eyes. She blinked them away quickly, but not before Helen noticed. I have a proposition for you, the chief continued. The Children's Cardiac Research Initiative needs a director. It's administrative, primarily, overseeing studies, coordinating with researchers, some surgical consultation. Regular hours, minimal on-call requirements. Eliza recognized the offer for what it was, a chance to remain professionally fulfilled while accommodating her changing personal circumstances. I'd still perform surgeries, she asked. Of course. Just with more predictable scheduling. Helen smiled. Think about it. The position is yours if you want it. After Helen left, Eliza sat on the bench, considering the unexpected opportunity. The research initiative had been her passion project for years, something she'd helped develop while balancing her surgical caseload. Directing it would be challenging and rewarding, and considerably more compatible with single motherhood. As she gathered her courage to face the day ahead, Eliza felt the first stirrings of something she hadn't experienced since finding Dominic with Rebecca, hope. The lawyer's office was coldly impersonal, all glass and chrome. Eliza sat on one side of the conference table, Dominic on the other, their respective attorneys between them like buffers. We've prepared the final divorce agreement as requested, her lawyer stated. Mr. Reeves has agreed to all terms. Eliza glanced at Dominic, surprised. After weeks of delays and counterproposals, his sudden capitulation was unexpected. The division of assets is as follows, the lawyer continued. Ms. Morgan retains her personal accounts, vehicles, and investments made prior to the marriage. Mr. Reeves retains the primary residence, vacation properties, and business holdings. No alimony will be paid by either party. Sterile language for the end of 5 years together. Eliza tried to feel triumphant, she was getting exactly what she'd asked for, but instead felt only a hollowing sadness. If there are no questions, we can proceed to signatures, her lawyer concluded. Dominic cleared his throat. Actually, I have one condition. Eliza tensed. After all this, he was still playing games. I'd like 5 minutes alone with my wife, he said quietly. Before we sign. The lawyers exchanged glances. Ms. Morgan, her attorney asked. Eliza considered refusing, but curiosity won out. 5 minutes, she agreed. When they were alone, Dominic slid an envelope across the table. Before you sign, you should see this. Warily, she opened it, finding a hospital letterhead inside. Her eyes widened as she scanned the contents. My medical records, she said, looking up in confusion. How did you get these? I didn't look at them, Dominic said quickly. But when the hospital called about your admission, they mentioned blood work, and I started to wonder. Eliza felt cold dread spreading through her. Wonder what? If there was a reason beyond exhaustion for your collapse. A reason you've been avoiding me so completely. His eyes held hers. Are you pregnant, Eliza? The directness of the question, asked in this sterile room where they were ending their marriage, struck her like a physical blow. She'd planned to tell him eventually, but on her terms, when she was ready. Yes, she finally admitted. I'm pregnant. Dominic closed his eyes briefly, his composure slipping for the first time. When he looked at her again, his expression was raw with emotion. Were you going to tell me? Eventually, she said. After everything was settled. And when were you planning to tell me I was going to be a father? After the birth? When will the child start school? The bitterness in his voice sparked her own anger. Don't you dare make me the villain here, Dominic. You're the one who destroyed our marriage. I made a terrible mistake, he acknowledged. One I will regret for the rest of my life. But this, he gestured to her still flat stomach, this changes everything. It changes nothing, Eliza insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. We're still getting divorced. I'm not contesting that anymore, Dominic said, surprising her again. I've accepted that I destroyed your trust beyond repair. But this child deserves both parents, Eliza. I would never keep you from your child, she said quietly. I want more than visitation rights. I want to be involved in everything, doctor's appointments, birthing classes, middle-of-the-night feedings. I want to be a real father. The intensity in his voice was unmistakable. Whatever his failings as a husband, Dominic seemed determined not to fail as a father. We can discuss co-parenting arrangements, Eliza said carefully. After today. Dominic nodded slowly. There's one more thing. He slid another document across the table. A revised settlement. She skimmed it, frowning. The brownstone in Lincoln Park. You're giving me the brownstone. It makes sense. It's in a good school district, has that garden you loved, plenty of room for a nursery. And it's yours free and clear, no mortgage, no strings attached. Eliza's first instinct was to refuse, she wanted nothing from him, but practicality tempered her pride. Her apartment was barely large enough for her alone, let alone with a baby. Why are you doing this? She asked. Because I still care about you, Dominic said simply. Because I want our child to have stability and security. And because, despite everything, I hope someday you might forgive me enough that we can be friends, for our child's sake if nothing else. The lawyers returned, finding them in silence. The revised agreement was reviewed, the brownstone added to Eliza's settlement. When it came time to sign, she hesitated only briefly before writing her name, officially ending their marriage. As they rose to leave, Dominic spoke one last time. My next appointment isn't until 3. If you're free, maybe we could get lunch. Talk about arrangements. Eliza considered refusing, maintaining the distance she'd so carefully constructed. But the reality of their situation had changed. They would be connected forever through their child, forced to build some kind of relationship beyond the ashes of their marriage. 1 hour, she agreed. There's a cafe across the street. It was a small step, the beginning of a new and complicated chapter. As they walked out together, no longer husband and wife but something not yet defined, Eliza felt the baby move for the first time, a flutter so slight she might have imagined it. Life, continuing. Change, inevitable. And perhaps, someday, healing. The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, mostly lawyers and office workers from nearby buildings. Eliza and Dominic sat in a corner booth, an awkward silence between them as they studied their menus. How are you feeling? Dominic finally asked. After yesterday? Better, Eliza replied. The fluids helped. More silence. The waiter came and took their orders, a salad for her, a sandwich for him. When they were alone again, Dominic leaned forward. I've been doing some research, he said. About pregnancy and what to expect. I want to be prepared. The statement caught Eliza off guard. It was so practical, so Dominic. Always prepared, always in control. Except when it came to his personal life, apparently. The first trimester can be tough, she said, her medical training kicking in. Morning sickness, fatigue. The second is usually easier. And you're at what, 11 weeks now? Almost 12. Dominic nodded, absorbing the information. When is your next appointment? Next Friday. Just a regular checkup. May I come? The question hung between them. Eliza hesitated, torn between her desire to keep him at arm's length and the reality that he was the baby's father. You can come to the 20-week anatomy scan, she said. That's when they check all the baby's organs and we might find out the sex, if you want to know. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. I'd like that. Their food arrived, and they ate in relative silence. Eliza picked at her salad, her appetite diminished by the strangeness of the situation. I want to talk about Rebecca, Dominic said suddenly. Eliza's fork clattered against her plate. I told you, I don't want to. I've cut her off completely, he interrupted. She's called dozens of times, but I haven't spoken to her since that night. I want you to know that. This surprised Eliza. Rebecca was Dominic's business partner's wife, former wife now, and they moved in the same social circles. Cutting her off would be complicated professionally as well as personally. That's between you and her, Eliza said carefully. No, it's between all of us. Dominic's voice was firm. What happened was unforgivable, but I need you to know it wasn't an affair. It was one terrible night that I would give anything to take back. Eliza pushed her plate away, her appetite gone completely. Why did it happen at all? That's what I can't understand. We were struggling, yes, but this. Dominic ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she recognized from moments when he was truly stressed, not just putting on a show. I was at a low point, he admitted. The Singapore deal was falling apart. You and I hadn't really talked in weeks. I was drinking too much, feeling sorry for myself. He looked up, meeting her eyes. Rebecca showed up at the lake house, upset about her divorce being finalized. She brought champagne, said we should commiserate together. And one thing led to another, Eliza finished bitterly. Yes. Dominic didn't try to sugarcoat it. I'm not blaming the alcohol or the circumstances. I made a choice, the worst choice of my life, and I have to live with that. But you asked why, and that's the truth. It wasn't love or even desire. It was weakness and selfishness. His brutal honesty disarmed her. She'd expected excuses, minimization, blame shifting. Instead, he owned his mistake completely. Has she tried to contact you? Dominic asked. Eliza nodded. I blocked her number. Changed the locks on my apartment when I realized she still had a key. I can't see her right now. Maybe not ever. I understand. And I'll make sure she respects that. The waiter cleared their plates, and they both declined dessert. As they waited for the check, Dominic reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. I've been working on some ideas for co-parenting, he said, sliding it toward her. Just preliminary thoughts about how we might make this work. Eliza raised an eyebrow. Always the planner. It helps me feel less helpless. For the first time, vulnerability showed clearly on his face. I never expected to be a father like this, divorced before the baby is even born. I want to do this right, Eliza. She took the folder but didn't open it. I'll look at it later. That's all I ask. He paid the bill despite her protests and walked her outside. As they prepared to part ways, he hesitated. May I call you? Just to check in occasionally. Eliza considered refusing but reminded herself this wasn't just about them anymore. Text first, she said. I might be in surgery. He nodded, accepting the boundary. Take care of yourself. And, thank you for lunch. As she watched him walk away, Eliza felt conflicted. Part of her still burned with anger and betrayal, but another part, the part that remembered the good years, the man she had fallen in love with, felt a tiny crack forming in the wall she'd built around her heart. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But perhaps the beginning of understanding. If you're finding this story of betrayal and difficult choices compelling, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Mr. Stephen Stories. Your support helps us continue bringing you these powerful human journeys. Now, let's continue with Eliza's story as she confronts the person who betrayed her most deeply, her own sister. A week later, Eliza was arranging books on a shelf in her new bedroom at the brownstone when the doorbell rang. She'd moved in 2 days ago, reluctantly accepting Dominic's offer of the house. The practical benefits were undeniable: spacious rooms, a beautiful garden, proximity to the hospital, and a safe neighborhood for raising a child. She opened the door expecting the delivery of baby furniture she'd ordered, but instead found Rebecca standing on her doorstep. The sisters stared at each other in silence. Rebecca looked terrible, hair limp, eyes red-rimmed, designer clothes hanging loosely on her frame. She'd lost weight. What are you doing here? Eliza finally asked, her voice cold. Please, Rebecca's voice cracked. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Every instinct told Eliza to slam the door in her face. But the same morbid curiosity that had led her to hear Dominic out made her step aside. 5 minutes, she echoed. Not a second more. They stood awkwardly in the living room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. Eliza refused to offer Rebecca a seat or anything to drink. This wasn't a social call between sisters, this was a confrontation between betrayer and betrayed. I've tried calling, Rebecca began. I blocked your number. I know. I don't blame you. Rebecca twisted her hands together nervously. Eliza, I am so sorry. What I did was unforgivable. Yes, it was. Eliza crossed her arms, protecting herself. Is that all you came to say? No. Rebecca took a deep breath. I came to tell you that it was all my fault. Not Dominic's. Eliza laughed harshly. It takes 2 people to have sex, Rebecca. But I pursued him. Aggressively. 4 months. Rebecca's admission hung in the air between them. He turned me down repeatedly. That night at the lake house. I got him drunk deliberately. I knew your marriage was struggling. I saw an opportunity and I took it. The revelation struck Eliza like a physical blow. She'd imagined many scenarios, but not this calculated seduction by her own sister. Why? She whispered. Why would you do that to me? Rebecca's face crumpled. Because I've always been jealous of you. Always. You were the smart one, the successful one, the one with the perfect husband. I wanted what you had, just once. So you destroyed my marriage? Eliza's voice rose. You betrayed me in the worst possible way because you were jealous. I never meant for you to find out. Rebecca cried. It was supposed to be one night, one mistake. I never thought you'd come home early. Get out. Eliza's voice was deadly quiet. Eliza, please. Get out. She pointed to the door, trembling with rage. You're dead to me, Rebecca. I never want to see you again. Rebecca backed toward the door, tears streaming down her face. He loves you, Eliza. He never stopped loving you. Don't punish him for my sin. When the door closed behind her sister, Eliza collapsed onto the floor, violent sobs racking her body. The betrayal cut even deeper now, knowing it had been deliberate, calculated. Her own sister had targeted her husband, and had set out to seduce him out of pure jealousy. And Dominic had succumbed. She didn't know how long she sat there, but eventually the doorbell rang again. This time it was the delivery she'd been expecting. She signed for the packages mechanically, then called the only person she could talk to. "Liv? Can you come over? It's Rebecca. She was just here." An hour later, Olivia sat beside her on the couch, listening as Eliza recounted her sister's confession. "So she planned it," Olivia said when Eliza finished. I don't even have words." "It makes it worse, somehow," Eliza admitted. "Knowing it was deliberate on her part. But maybe better in another way?" Olivia suggested cautiously. "It wasn't an ongoing affair. Dominic wasn't seeking it out. He still did it," Eliza pointed out. "He still betrayed me." "Absolutely," Olivia agreed. "I'm not excusing him. But Rebecca's revelation does change the context, doesn't it?" Eliza didn't respond immediately, her thoughts tumbling over each other. Rebecca's words echoed in her mind, "He loves you. He never stopped loving you." "I don't know what to think anymore," she finally admitted. "I was so certain about everything, the divorce, raising this baby alone, cutting both of them out of my life. Now I just feel confused." Olivia squeezed her hand. "You don't have to decide anything right now. You're still processing. Give yourself time." Time. The one thing that seemed to be moving too quickly. Every day brought her closer to motherhood, closer to a future she hadn't planned for. "I have the anatomy scan next week," Eliza said. "I told Dominic he could come. How do you feel about seeing him again?" "Honestly? I don't know. Part of me still hates him for what he did. Another part." She trailed off. "Still love him?" Olivia finished gently. Eliza nodded, tears filling her eyes. "Is that pathetic? After everything?" "It's human," Olivia corrected. "Love doesn't just disappear, even when it's wounded. Especially when you're carrying his child." Later that night, alone in her new house, Eliza found herself opening the folder Dominic had given her. Inside were thoughtful, detailed plans for co-parenting, schedules that accounted for her surgical rotation and his business travel, research on the best pediatricians in the area, educational options from preschool through high school, even a draft trust for the baby's future. The thoroughness was so typically Dominic that it made her heart ache. He'd approached impending fatherhood the same way he approached everything, with meticulous attention to detail and forward thinking. At the back of the folder was a handwritten note. "Eliza, asterisk. I know these plans can't make up for what I've done. Nothing can. But I want you to know that I am committed to being the best father I can be to our child, and the best co-parent I can be to you, asterisk. You deserve happiness, and our child deserves parents who respect each other, even if they can't be together. I promise to honor that, always, asterisk. Dominic asterisk." Eliza closed the folder, her emotions too complex to untangle. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she would think about what Rebecca had revealed, about Dominic's plans, about the future stretching before her. Tonight, she would simply rest her hand on her growing belly and focus on the one certainty in her life, the child who would depend on her to make the right choices, whatever those might be. The ultrasound waiting room was crowded with expectant couples, most sitting close together, sharing the excitement of seeing their baby for the first time. Eliza sat alone, flipping through a parenting magazine without really seeing the pages. She checked her watch, Dominic was 10 minutes late. Perhaps he wasn't coming after all. "Eliza." She looked up to see him hurrying toward her, slightly out of breath. "I'm sorry I'm late," he said, taking the seat beside her. "The board meeting ran over, then traffic was a nightmare." "It's fine," she replied, trying to keep her voice neutral. "They're running behind anyway." They sat in awkward silence for a few minutes. Dominic was impeccably dressed as always, but Eliza noticed the dark circles under his eyes, the slight dishevelment of his usually perfect hair. He hadn't been sleeping well. "How have you been feeling?" he asked finally. "Better. The morning sickness is mostly gone now." "And the new position at the hospital?" Eliza was surprised he knew about that. "It's good. More regular hours, still challenging work." "I'm glad." He hesitated. "The brownstone working out okay?" "Yes," she admitted. "It was thoughtful of you." Before he could respond, a nurse called her name. "Eliza Morgan." They followed the nurse to the ultrasound room, where a technician waited with a warm smile. "First time seeing baby?" she asked, noting Dominic's nervous energy. "Yes," they both answered simultaneously. "Well, you're in for a treat. 20 weeks is my favorite stage. Baby's big enough to see all the important structures, but still active enough to put on a good show." Eliza lay back on the examination table, lifting her shirt to expose her rounded belly. She felt Dominic's gaze and resisted the urge to cover herself. This was medical, not intimate, she reminded herself. The technician applied the gel and pressed the transducer against Eliza's skin. A rapid whooshing sound filled the room, their baby's heartbeat. Dominic inhaled sharply. That's our baby's heart?" he asked, his voice hushed with wonder. "Strong and steady," the technician confirmed. "Perfect rate." The screen flickered, and suddenly their baby appeared, a perfect profile, tiny hands, feet kicking energetically. Eliza felt tears spring to her eyes. She'd seen countless ultrasounds professionally, but nothing prepared her for seeing her own child. "Oh my God," Dominic whispered. He reached for Eliza's hand instinctively, then caught himself and pulled back. "It's okay," she said softly, surprising herself. She extended her hand, and he took it, his grip warm and secure. The technician continued her measurements, pointing out various organs and structures. "The brain looks perfect, for chambers of the heart, all functioning beautifully, spine is completely intact, both kidneys present." "Everything's normal?" Dominic asked anxiously. "Everything looks textbook perfect," the technician assured him. "You've got a very healthy baby in there." "Can you tell the sex?" Eliza asked. The technician moved the wand, smiling. "Baby's in a perfect position to see." "Are you sure you want to know?" They exchanged glances, and Dominic nodded. "It's a girl," the technician announced. "Congratulations. A daughter." Eliza felt her heart expand with love for this tiny person inside her. She glanced at Dominic and saw his eyes shining with tears. "A little girl," he repeated, his voice thick with emotion. The moment was so raw, so genuine, that Eliza felt her carefully constructed walls begin to crack. This was the Dominic she had fallen in love with, not the polished businessman, but the vulnerable man beneath. After the appointment, they stood awkwardly in the hospital parking lot, both still processing the reality of their daughter. "Thank you for letting me be part of that," Dominic said finally. Eliza nodded, uncertain how to respond. The intimacy of the experience had left her emotionally exposed. "I have the pictures," she said, pulling out the strip of ultrasound images the technician had given them. "Do you want some?" "Please," he said eagerly. She handed him half the strip, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "I have another appointment in 4 weeks. Just routine. May I come to that one too?" Something in his hopeful expression made it impossible to refuse. "Yes. I'll text you the details." He hesitated, then asked, "Have you thought about names?" The question caught her off guard. "Not really. It seems premature." "Of course," he said quickly. "There's plenty of time." An awkward silence fell between them. "I should get back to work," Eliza said finally. "Right, of course." Dominic seemed reluctant to leave. "Eliza, I was wondering if maybe we could start having dinner once a week. Just to discuss the baby and plans. Nothing more." Her first instinct was to refuse, to maintain the emotional distance she'd established. But today something changed. Seeing their daughter, sharing that moment with him, it had shifted her perspective slightly. "Maybe," she said cautiously. "Let me think about it." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. And from the way Dominic's face brightened, she knew it was more than he'd expected. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I'll be here." As she drove back to the hospital, Eliza found herself wondering if "here" meant more than just physically present. It felt like a promise of emotional presence too, something that had been missing in their marriage long before Rebecca entered the picture. If you're moved by Eliza's journey through forgiveness and difficult choices, please like this video and subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories. Let us know in the comments what you might do in her situation. We'd love to hear your thoughts as we continue this powerful story. Weekly dinners became a routine over the next month. Always at public restaurants, always focused on practical matters related to the baby. They discussed pediatricians, childcare options, birthing classes, and parenting philosophies. They created a shared online calendar for appointments and started a joint savings account specifically for their daughter's expenses. It was all very civilized, very structured, very safe. Until the night Dominic arrived at the restaurant to find Eliza pale and clearly distressed. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, sliding into the booth across from her. "I felt some cramping today," she admitted. "And spotting." His face was drained of color. "Did you call your doctor? Should we go to the hospital?" "I spoke with my OB. She said it could be nothing, stretching ligaments, normal changes. But she wants me to come in tomorrow for a checkup." Eliza twisted her napkin nervously. "I'm sure it's fine." But her medical knowledge made the reassurance hollow. She knew all the things that could go wrong in the second trimester. "I'll take you to the appointment," Dominic said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You don't need to." "Yes, I do." He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "This is our daughter, Eliza. I'm not letting you face this alone." The fierce protectiveness in his voice silenced her objections. For the first time since their separation, she allowed herself to lean on him, just a little. "The appointment's at 9, she said. "Can you make it?" "I'll cancel whatever I need to." They barely touched their food, conversation stunted by worry. When they finished, Dominic insisted on driving her home, following her inside to make sure she was comfortable. "You should rest," he said, hovering awkwardly in her living room. "Can I get you anything? Tea? Water?" "I'm okay." Eliza sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. "You don't have to stay." "I know." He sat in an armchair across from her. "But I'd like to, if that's all right. Just until you go to sleep. In case you need anything." She should have refused. It was too intimate, too much like before. But the thought of being alone with her fears was worse. "Fine," she conceded. "But just for a little while." Dominic nodded, visibly relieved. He found a throw blanket and tucked it around her, then retreated to the kitchen. She heard him moving around, opening cabinets, running water. A few minutes later, he returned with a mug of chamomile tea. "Your favorite," he said, setting it on the coffee table. The small gesture, remembering how she liked to wind down in the evening, touched her more than she wanted to admit. She sipped the tea, feeling some of the tension ease from her shoulders. "Try to sleep," Dominic encouraged. "I'll be right here if you need me." Against her better judgment, Eliza allowed her eyes to close. The familiar sound of Dominic's breathing, the security of knowing she wasn't facing this crisis alone, it was enough to lull her into sleep. She woke hours later to find him still there, slumped uncomfortably in the armchair, his laptop open on his knees. He'd been working while she slept, staying true to his word not to leave her. "Dominic," she said softly. He startled awake, immediately alert. "Are you okay? Is it the baby?" I'm fine. But it's late. You should go home. He checked his watch, 2:17 a.m. I wanted to make sure you were all right. I am. And strangely, she meant it. The cramping had subsided, and the anxiety had dulled to a manageable level. Thank you for staying. Dominic gathered his things, moving quietly so as not to disturb the peaceful atmosphere. At the door, he turned back. I'll pick you up at 8:30 tomorrow. Okay. After he left, Eliza returned to bed, her hand resting on her belly where their daughter grew. The gesture of care he'd shown tonight, it wasn't about obligation or guilt. It was about love, plain and simple. Love for their child, and perhaps, still, love for her. The realization should have frightened her. Instead, it felt like the first step on a long road back to something she'd thought was lost forever. The doctor's visit the next morning brought welcome news: everything was normal. The cramping was indeed just ligament pain, common in the second trimester, and the spotting was minor and not concerning. Your cervix is closed, fluid levels look perfect, and your little girl is very active, the OB assured them, pointing to the monitor where their daughter was doing what appeared to be somersaults. Just take it easy for a few days, no heavy lifting, get plenty of rest. The relief was palpable as they left the office. In the elevator, Dominic let out a long breath. I was so scared, he admitted. Me too, Eliza confessed. More than I realized. He drove her home, insisted on making her lunch, and set her up on the couch with everything she might need within reach. I can work from here today, he said, setting up his laptop on the coffee table. Dominic, you don't have to babysit me. I'm fine. Humor me, he asked, and something in his expression, a mixture of concern and determination, made it impossible to refuse. So they spent the day together, working side by side in comfortable silence. It felt strangely domestic, reminiscent of their early marriage when they would spend Sundays catching up on work while enjoying each other's company. When evening came, Dominic ordered dinner and they ate on the couch, watching a documentary about marine life. It was the most normal day they'd had together in over a year. I should go, he said reluctantly when the program ended. You need your rest. Thank you, Eliza said. For today. For everything. He nodded, gathering his things. At the door, he paused. Lily. What? For a name. I was thinking maybe Lily. He looked slightly embarrassed. You mentioned once that lilies were your grandmother's favorite flower. The one who inspired you to become a doctor. The fact that he remembered such a small detail from a conversation years ago struck Eliza deeply. Lily, she repeated, testing it out. It's beautiful. Just a thought, he said quickly. It's your decision, of course. Our decision, she corrected softly. The smile that spread across his face was like the sun breaking through clouds. Good night, Eliza. Good night, Dominic. After he left, Eliza sat for a long time, thinking about the man who had been her husband, who was the father of her child, who remembered the smallest details about her life even after everything that had happened between them. For the first time since finding him with Rebecca, she allowed herself to consider a question that had been hovering at the edges of her consciousness: was it possible to forgive the unforgivable? The following weeks brought a gradual thawing in their relationship. Their weekly dinners became less formal, more comfortable. Sometimes they met at her house instead of restaurants, sharing takeout as they discussed names and nursery colors. Dominic attended every doctor's appointment, participated in birthing classes without complaint, and spent weekends helping prepare the nursery. He assembled furniture, painted walls the soft sage green Eliza had chosen, and installed bookshelves for the children's books that had begun arriving, gifts from colleagues and friends. It was during one such weekend, as Dominic hung delicate paper lanterns from the nursery ceiling, that Eliza found herself watching him with a complicated mixture of emotions. He was focused on his task, careful to space the lanterns evenly, his expression one of complete concentration. Why didn't we have this before? She asked suddenly. He paused, turning to look at her. What do you mean? This. Eliza gestured between them. This partnership. This focuses on building something together. We lost this somewhere along the way, didn't we? Dominic stepped down from the ladder, considering her question seriously. I think we got caught up in our separate ambitions, he said finally. You with your surgical career, me with Horizon. We were building separate lives that happened to intersect occasionally, not a shared life. The honesty of his assessment struck her. He was right. Their marriage had been crumbling long before Rebecca entered the picture. Not from lack of love, but from lack of nurturing that love. I was thinking about what Rebecca told me, Eliza said, the words coming before she could reconsider. Dominic stiffened. What did she say? That she pursued you. That it wasn't an ongoing affair. Eliza met his gaze directly. Was that true? Yes, he said without hesitation. I'm not excusing what happened, I made a terrible choice that night. But it was one night, one mistake. I never wanted anyone but you, Eliza. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. Eliza nodded slowly, processing his words. I believe you, she said finally. And I think I'm starting to understand how we got to that point. Understanding isn't the same as forgiving, Dominic said cautiously. No, it's not. Eliza rested her hands on her growing belly, feeling their daughter kick. But maybe it's a start. The moment was interrupted by the doorbell. Eliza frowned, she wasn't expecting anyone. I'll get it, Dominic offered. He returned moments later, his expression grave. It's Rebecca. Eliza's heart clenched. What does she want? She says she needs to talk to both of us. That it's important. I don't want to see her. I told her that. She said it's about the baby. About our family. Something in his tone made Eliza pause. What did she mean by that? I don't know. But she seemed desperate. Eliza considered for a moment, then sighed. Fine. 5 minutes. In the living room. Rebecca looked worse than the last time Eliza had seen her, thinner, her designer clothes hanging loosely, dark circles under her eyes. She stood awkwardly in the center of the living room, clutching her purse like a shield. Make it quick, Eliza said coldly. Rebecca nodded, swallowing hard. I'm leaving Chicago. Moving to Seattle for a fresh start. Good for you, Eliza replied. Was that all? No. Rebecca took a deep breath. Before I go, I wanted to make sure you both knew the complete truth. About that night, and about what led to it. Dominic moved to stand beside Eliza, a silent show of support. What truth? I didn't just target you because I was jealous of Eliza, Rebecca said, her voice shaking. I did it because I was in love with you. I had been for years. The admission hung in the air, shocking both of them. That's why my marriage failed, she continued. Marcus knew I was in love with someone else. He just didn't know it was his business partner's husband. Eliza felt sick. Her sister had coveted not just her life, but her husband specifically. Had watched them, envied them, plotted to take what was Eliza's. Why are you telling us this now? Dominic asked, his voice hard. Because you deserve to know exactly what happened. And because. Rebecca's voice broke. Because I've been in therapy. Really working on myself. And I've realized how deeply I hurt you both. The therapist said I need to make amends before I can move forward. Amends? Eliza echoed incredulously. You think this is something you can make amends for? No, Rebecca admitted. Probably not. But I had to try. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. This is a letter for your daughter. For when she's older. Explaining that what happened was my fault, not either of yours. So she knows her parents' marriage didn't end because they didn't love each other. The gesture, unexpected and strangely thoughtful, left Eliza speechless. Rebecca placed the envelope on the coffee table. That's all I came to say. I won't bother you again. She moved toward the door, then paused. I am truly sorry, both of you. I hope someday you can find happiness again, together or apart. After she left, silence filled the room. Eliza stared at the envelope, emotions swirling too chaotically to name. Are you okay? Dominic asked quietly. I don't know. Eliza sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. She was in love with you. All this time. I had no idea, he said, sitting beside her. Not until that night when she made it clear. And even then, I thought it was just momentary attraction. Not something long-term. Would it have made a difference if you'd known? Of course, he said firmly. I would have created distance, made boundaries clearer. I never saw her that way, Eliza. Never. She believed him. Strangely, Rebecca's revelation had cleared away some of the lingering doubt. Dominic hadn't sought the affair, he hadn't been secretly attracted to her sister. He'd made a terrible mistake in a moment of weakness, manipulated by someone who had calculated her moves carefully. It didn't excuse what he'd done. But it did make it easier to understand. What do you want to do with the letter? Dominic asked, nodding toward the envelope. Eliza picked it up, turning it over in her hands. Keep it, I guess. She's right that someday our daughter might have questions. Our daughter, Dominic repeated softly. Lily. You really like that name, don't you? I do. But if you prefer something else. No, Eliza interrupted. Lily is perfect. Lily Grace Reeves. Dominic's eyes widened at the use of his surname. You want to use my last name? She's your daughter, Eliza said simply. And whatever happens between us, that won't change. The whatever happens between us hung in the air, a question neither was quite ready to address. But for the first time since the divorce, it felt like a question with multiple possible answers, not just a foregone conclusion. If this story of complicated emotions and difficult paths to forgiveness is touching your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Mr. Steven's Stories. Your engagement helps us bring more powerful human stories to light. Now, let's continue Eliza and Dominic's journey as they prepare for their daughter's arrival. At 36 weeks pregnant, Eliza waddled rather than walked, her petite frame dramatically transformed by her daughter's imminent arrival. The nursery was complete, hospital bags packed, birth plan finalized. All that remained was waiting. She had just finished a final virtual meeting with her research team when a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped, gripping the edge of her desk as the contraction built, peaked, then gradually subsided. Just Braxton Hicks, she told herself, but a nagging instinct, the doctor in her, said otherwise. She glanced at her watch, making a mental note of the time. 20 minutes later, another contraction hit, stronger this time. She began timing them, concerned about growing as the pattern established itself. Too early, too consistent, too strong to be false labor. When her water broke an hour later, there was no more denying it. Lily was coming, 4 weeks ahead of schedule. With shaking hands, Eliza called Dominic. The baby's coming, she said when he answered. My water broke. I'm on my way, he replied immediately. 10 minutes, tops. Don't move. True to his word, he arrived in record time, face tense with concern. How far apart are the contractions? About 7 minutes, Eliza said, wincing as another one began. But getting stronger. Dominic helped her to the car, her hospital bag slung over his shoulder. As he drove, he kept glancing at her, monitoring her breathing through contractions. She's early, he said, voicing the fear Eliza felt. Is that bad? 36 weeks is technically preterm, but only slightly, Eliza explained, her medical training a comfort now. Her lungs should be developed enough. She might need some extra help at first, but the prognosis is good. Dominic nodded, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. She's got the best doctor in the city for a mother. And she's strong, like you. The vote of confidence steadied Eliza as they arrived at the hospital. Everything moved quickly after that, triage, monitoring, the confirmation that yes, this was active labor, and no, there was no stopping it now. 4 centimeters dilated already, the attending physician announced. This might go faster than we expected for a first baby. The next few hours passed in a blur of increasing pain as Eliza's labor progressed rapidly. Dominic never left her side, supporting her through each contraction, wiping her brow, feeding her ice chips, advocating fiercely when she was too focused on breathing to speak for herself. "I can't do this," Eliza gasped after a particularly brutal contraction. "It's too much." "You can," Dominic said firmly, holding her gaze. "You're the strongest person I know, remember. Our daughter needs you to be brave for just a little longer." His unwavering faith in her gave Eliza the strength to continue. When the time came to push, Dominic supported her physically and emotionally, counting through each effort, encouraging her when she faltered. "One more big push," the doctor urged. "The head is almost out." Eliza gathered her remaining strength, bearing down with everything she had. A moment of searing pain, a strange sliding sensation, and then, the most beautiful sound she'd ever heard. Her daughter's first cry, indignant and strong. "She's here," Dominic whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. "Eliza, she's perfect." The doctor placed the tiny, squirming infant on Eliza's chest. Lily was smaller than a full-term baby, but her cry was vigorous, her color good. Eliza counted fingers and toes through her tears, marveling at the perfect little person they had created. "Hello, Lily," she whispered. "We've been waiting for you." Dominic leaned close, one hand cradling their daughter's head, the other still holding Eliza's. The three of them connected in that moment, a family, despite everything that had come before. When the nurses took Lily for her initial assessment, Dominic turned to Eliza, his expression raw with emotion. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. "For her. For letting me be part of this." Exhausted but euphoric, Eliza reached for his hand. "We did this together." It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly. But it was acknowledgement that whatever had broken between them, they had created something beautiful together. And maybe, just maybe, that was a foundation upon which other things could be rebuilt. The first weeks of Lily's life passed in a sleep-deprived haze. Despite being slightly premature, she thrived, gaining weight steadily and developing a set of powerful lungs that she exercised regularly at 3 a.m. Dominic had taken a month's leave from Horizon, setting up a temporary office in Eliza's guest room so he could be present for his daughter's early days. The arrangement had raised eyebrows among their friends, exes living under the same roof, even temporarily, but it worked for them. They developed a rhythm, taking turns with night feedings, supporting each other through exhaustion. During quiet moments when Lily slept, they talked more openly than they had in years, about their careers, their childhoods, their hopes for their daughter. One night, as they sat in the nursery, Lily sleeping peacefully in Dominic's arms, Eliza found herself studying his face. The tender way he looked at their daughter, the gentle care with which he held her, it was a side of him she'd glimpsed only rarely during their marriage. "You're a natural at this," she said softly. Dominic looked up, surprised. "I don't feel like a natural. I feel terrified most of the time that I'll do something wrong." "That's what makes you good at it. You care so much." Eliza smiled. "She's lucky to have you as her father." "I'm the lucky one," he replied, gazing down at Lily's sleeping face. "She gave me a second chance at what matters most." The words hung between them, layered with meaning. Eliza knew he wasn't just talking about fatherhood. "Dominic," she began hesitantly. "I've been thinking about us. About what happened? He looked up, his expression carefully neutral. What about it? Rebecca's visit made me realize something. Our marriage was in trouble long before that night at the lake house. We were drifting apart, focused on everything except each other. That's true, he acknowledged. But it doesn't excuse what I did. No, it doesn't, Eliza agreed. What you did was wrong. Deeply wrong. But I think I'm ready to stop punishing us both for it. Dominic's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying that I understand now how we got to that point. And while I can't forget what happened, I think I'm ready to forgive. Not just you, but myself too, for the part one played in the breakdown of our marriage. He stared at her, hope and caution warring in his expression. Eliza, I don't deserve. It's not about deserving, she interrupted gently. It's about choosing. And I'm choosing to move forward, not stay trapped in the past. She took a deep breath. I'm not saying we should get back together. I'm just saying. Maybe we could try being friends again. Real friends. And see where that leads. Dominic nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. I'd like that. Very much. Me too, Eliza admitted, surprising herself with how much she meant it. Lily stirred in her father's arms, making the little snuffling sounds that preceded waking. The moment between her parents paused as they both turned their attention to their daughter, the living embodiment of the love they had once shared, and might, someday, share again. 6 months passed. Lily grew from a tiny newborn to a chubby, laughing baby who adored her father and reached for her mother with delighted squeals. Dominic had returned to his own apartment but spent most evenings and weekends at the brownstone, co-parenting in the truest sense of the word. Their friendship had deepened gradually, built on shared parental joy and rediscovered common interests. They were careful, moving slowly, both aware of the fragility of what they were rebuilding. On a crisp autumn evening, they sat in the garden after putting Lily to bed, sharing a bottle of wine and enjoying the rare quiet moment. I have something to ask you, Dominic said, his tone serious enough to make Eliza set down her glass. What is it? My lease is up next month. I've been thinking, it might make sense for me to move closer. To be near Lily. Eliza nodded. That seems practical. The thing is, he continued, there's a house for sale on this street. Just 3 doors down. Oh. Eliza tried to process what he was suggesting. You want to live that close? Only if you're comfortable with it, he assured her quickly. I know we've made progress, but I don't want to push too hard or move too fast. Eliza considered the proposal. Having Dominic living so nearby would make co-parenting even easier. Lily would have both parents within walking distance, able to share spontaneous moments and daily routines. But it would also mean seeing him constantly, blurring the boundaries they'd carefully established. Was she ready for that level of integration back into each other's lives? What would this mean for us, she asked finally. For our friendship. Dominic set his wine glass down, turning to face her fully. I hope it would mean we could continue what we've been building these past months. Getting to know each other again, rebuilding trust. And if it becomes more than friendship? Eliza challenged softly. Then we'd take it one day at a time, he said. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people who share a child and a history, figuring out if they might have a future too. The honesty of his answer touched her. There was no manipulation, no presumption, just genuine hope and respect for whatever boundaries she needed. I think, she said slowly, that I'd like to have you closer. For Lily's sake, and, for mine too. The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise. Really? Really? Eliza returned his smile, feeling something unfurl in her chest, something that felt remarkably like hope. As they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one, Eliza reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From betrayal to heartbreak to divorce to co-parenting to this tenuous, precious new beginning. They weren't the same people who had married 5 years ago. Life had changed them both, wounds and healing creating new patterns in the fabric of who they were. But perhaps that was the point. Perhaps they needed to become these newer, wiser versions of themselves before they could truly see each other. "What are you thinking about?" Dominic asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "Second chances," Eliza replied honestly. "And how sometimes the hardest ones to give are the ones most worth giving." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle and questioning. When she didn't pull away, his fingers intertwined with hers, a small gesture of connection, a bridge between their past and whatever future they might build together. Above them, the stars continued their ancient patterns, witnessing this moment of tentative reconciliation as they had witnessed countless human stories throughout time. Stories of love and loss, betrayal and forgiveness, endings and new beginnings. Just like this one. If this story of love, betrayal, and the challenging path to forgiveness has touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Mr. Steven Stories, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these deeply human stories to life. Thank you for joining us on Eliza and Dominic's journey, a reminder that sometimes the most broken relationships hold the potential for the most beautiful rebuilding. 1 year later, Lily Grace Reeves celebrated her first birthday in the garden of the brownstone, surrounded by family and friends. She toddled unsteadily between her parents, dark curls bouncing, green eyes, so like her father's, wide with delight at the balloons and decorations. Dominic had moved into the house down the street 6 months earlier, creating a unique family arrangement that raised eyebrows but worked perfectly for them. Lily spent nights at both homes, her parents coordinating schedules and sharing responsibilities with an ease that came from months of practice and genuine respect. The birthday party was winding down, guests departing with slices of cake and warm goodbyes. Olivia, the last to leave, hugged Eliza tightly. "You look happy," she observed. "Genuinely happy." "I am," Eliza admitted, watching as Dominic gently wiped frosting from Lily's chubby cheeks. "It's not what I expected, but it's good." "And you too?" Olivia nodded toward Dominic. Eliza smiled. "We're figuring it out. Taking it slow." "Well, whatever you're doing, it's working." Olivia squeezed her friend's hand. "I'm proud of you, you know. For having the courage to forgive." After Olivia left, Eliza joined Dominic and Lily in the garden. Their daughter was fighting sleep, her little head nodding even as she struggled to remain part of the excitement. "I think someone's ready for bed," Dominic observed, lifting Lily into his arms. Big day for a little girl. Together, they went through the familiar bedtime routine, bath, story, lullaby. When Lily finally drifted off, they stood side by side at her crib, watching their daughter sleep. "She's perfect," Eliza whispered. "She is." Dominic's hand found hers in the dimness of the nursery. "Thank you for today. For everything." They moved quietly downstairs, cleaning up the remnants of the party in comfortable silence. When the last gift was put away and the last balloon tied securely, Dominic hesitated by the door. "I should probably head home," he said, though his reluctance was evident. Eliza took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "You could stay. If you want." The words hung between them, weighted with meaning. This wasn't about practicality or co-parenting. This was about them, the two people beneath the titles of mother and father, ex-wife and ex-husband. "Are you sure?" Dominic asked, his voice carefully neutral despite the hope in his eyes. "I'm sure." Eliza stepped closer, bridging the physical distance between them as they had been bridging the emotional one for months. "It's been a year, Dominic. A year of healing, of rebuilding trust, of remembering why we fell in love in the first place." "And have you?" he asked softly. "Remembered?" Instead of answering with words, Eliza rose on tiptoe and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, the reconnection of two people who had once known each other intimately but now approached each other with new awareness. When they parted, Dominic's eyes were bright with emotion. "I never stopped loving you," he confessed. "Even when I thought I'd lost you forever." "I know." Eliza took his hand, leading him toward the stairs. "I think part of me always knew." That night, as they rediscovered each other with the patience and appreciation that comes from nearly losing something precious, Eliza realized that their journey had come full circle. From love to betrayal to separation to forgiveness and back to love again, but a different love now. Deeper. Wiser. More resilient. A love that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger for the burning. In the morning, they woke to Lily's happy babbling through the baby monitor. Dominic pulled Eliza close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "What happens now?" he asked, the question encompassing far more than just the day ahead. Eliza smiled, resting her head on his chest where she could hear the steady beating of his heart. "Now we build something new. Together." And in that moment, with the sun streaming through the windows and their daughter calling for them from her crib, Eliza knew they would do exactly that. Not a perfect life, there was no such thing, but a real one. Built on honesty and forgiveness, strengthened by the knowledge of what they had almost lost, and illuminated by the pure, uncomplicated love of the child who had brought them back together. She had discovered she was pregnant and ended her marriage after catching her billionaire husband with her sister. But that wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one they would write together, one day at a time. Thank you for joining us for this powerful story of betrayal, forgiveness, and second chances. If Eliza and Dominic's journey touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Mr. Steven Stories, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember that sometimes the deepest wounds can lead to the most profound healing, and that forgiveness, while never easy, can be the greatest gift we give ourselves. Until next time, this is Mr. Steven, reminding you that every ending has the potential to become a beautiful new beginning.